Hey, what's up, podcast? It's Jeff, and you are listening to a special bonus episode of Teach Better Talk. This is audio pulled from one of our daily drop-ins. That's right, daily drop-ins are back every day, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time over on Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube. This is happening from November 23rd all the way to December 18th, so join us on any of the social media platforms. We are at Teach Better Team for our daily drop-ins. We're here to support you, answering questions, talking about fun stuff, bringing on special guests, anything you need, we're here for you. Join us for the daily drop-ins. Let's get into this special bonus episode. Enjoy.
Good morning, everyone. Happy daily drop-in. We are live like we are every single morning at 7:30 Central, 8:30 Eastern. I have one of my favorite people with me ever, and I'm so excited to torture you, Sam. So we are going to get into that in just a little bit. Please make sure you share in the comments where you're watching from, what platform you're watching from, and any questions you have, because remember, the daily drop-in truly does exist, just to give us a space to talk shop, ask questions, and hang out and set the tone for the day. So let's get this started. Samantha Munroe, live with me on a daily drop-in. I don't know that I ever expected this to happen. I feel kind of like I'm interviewing the biggest celebrity of all time. How do you feel about that?
I'm really excited, kind of nervous. Can we confirm, am I the youngest participant on the daily drop-in series?
The youngest guest we've ever had. You might be. Yes.
Thank you.
So you're not only the biggest celebrity, but you're the youngest celebrity.
Yeah, I'm just kind of fishing for some awards, and so I figured I had to ask that one.
That makes sense. You know what? I have spent most of our relationship trying to give you awards for just how great I think you are, and you've constantly been like, not yet, Rae, I can do better. So are you finally just like accepting the fact that I think you're really cool? Is that happening officially?
I think I could definitely take youngest guest on daily drop-in series for the Teach Better team. That works.
Done. We're going to make it happen. For those of you who are just joining us, good morning. Welcome to the Daily Drop-In. Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments as we get our morning started. You guys know me. My name is Rae, part of the Teach Better team, but I have Samantha Munroe with me, who I don't know if people know exactly who you are, Sam. I don't know if we should like leave them in suspense or if we should like spill all the beans. I mean, you're kind of like on a pedestal in my mind, right or wrong. So would you mind kind of sharing a little bit about yourself? Who are you? What brings you to the Daily Drop-In?
Sure. So I'm Samantha Munroe. I was Rae's student teacher this semester, and made me such a better educator. It was a wonderful time. I'm a senior at Illinois Wesleyan University. I play basketball there and studying elementary education. So I'll be graduating in May, and I'm here because, Rae's making me a better educator.
You're here because Rae's torturing you on as daily of a basis as humanly possible. And we're just essentially like, I see this as like your interview for life. Like, I think you're going to get like 45 job offers after this live video. So I feel like I should just be asking you interview questions and, see how good of an educator you really are. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I didn't prep for that one. So maybe let's wait for that later in the day.
Girl, you've been prepping since the beginning of time to be a teacher. So you're ready. You'll be fine. No big deal. Whatever.
Yeah, I still got to look at some interview questions. Thank you.
I think you're going to be great. Before we get into taking your questions, it's so good to see all of you. Thanks for commenting. Good morning. We always love like celebrating Daily Drop-In with all of you. Sam, I personally was excited for you to come on kind of for two reasons. One, because you just finished up your student teaching during a world pandemic where you were not physically allowed in the building during the entire semester. You and I, though, had worked together in the past, and thank goodness we had, because we literally never physically saw each other the entire semester you student taught, which is insane. So we should get into all of that. But then on the flip side, I literally spent every single day an hour with you all fall. And now that you've left me, I'm a little lonely in the classroom. So I actually am working to see if you'll come back and hang out with me. What are your thoughts on that?
Most definitely will come back. Haven't really done much on break here, so I'm a little bored.
Oh, see? Okay, so you're back at your family's house. You're kind of on this like winter break, extended winter break from school right now. So you're available to come teach my class a little bit longer, right?
Yeah, it's kind of crazy to think. I've actually sat on my couch in the morning and been like, oh, I wonder if I just went in the Google Meet. Like, what would the students do? What would Rae think? I've thought about it.
We would love to have you. I do like this comment from Alex. Good morning, the infamous student teacher making her debut. I like this. Sam, it was kind of like funny all semester. I bragged on you a lot because I can't imagine doing a student teaching experience where your first day is not only remote, but then you go the entire semester never having met your co-op in person, never having met any of your students in person. And I don't mean to butter you up because I know we're only 5 minutes into our live discussion, but you kind of killed it. So that's kind of, beating all odds in my opinion. So do you have any thoughts on the fact that you like made it to the end of the semester? Like, is there a little bit of a moment where you're like, nice job, Sam, good for me?
Yeah, no, most definitely. I didn't really think about how we had already met in person the year prior, but if I reflect on that, it was such a big help understanding how your classroom worked and knowing how you worked as well. I think that definitely helped our relationship in managing my student teaching experience online. Because I know I was banned from the building, unfortunately, but most definitely understandable. So definitely not being able to be in there at first, it was difficult. I think I still go into my room since my desk was in my room, and I still can't sleep through the night. It's a very stressful place in there, but it was fun.
Guys, see, she's like the best person ever. All right, Sam, let's set the tone. Let's set the scene. We have all these people watching. I've been talking about this incredible student teacher who, by the way, will be graduating in May. So if you have a job opening, Samantha Munroe. I'm just going to keep joking about that. However, the first time we met, I remember it vividly because it was the fall of last year. Is that correct? The fall of last year?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And you walked in my room, this cool college girl. And the first thing she says is, hi, my name's Sam Munroe. I hate middle school. I want to teach elementary school. And I was like, welcome to 6th grade.
Yes, that definitely was I think that actually was our first words exchanged.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And so I was like, this is going to be a really good fit. She doesn't like older children. I teach in a middle school setting. This is already off to a great start.
I think you said by the end of your time here, you will love middle school. And honestly, if I could write a review on your page, 100% guaranteed that was correct.
Woo! See, I just want you to know that I made that up on the spot and I actually had no hope for that happening. So the fact that it came true is a win-win for me. But you did so much more when you came in that fall semester, which would have been 2019. You really were only supposed to observe. Like you were what were you, been a junior at that point?
Yeah.
Yeah, and you were just supposed to come in and like watch the kiddos. And instead, I'm pretty sure you were teaching like your second day there. So
that definitely was.
Tell me about that experience. You were just supposed to walk in for an observation, but you kind of jumped in head first and said, I really want to start and do as much as possible. And I was the goofy one that was like, sure. So what was your mindset during that entire semester of fake observing / almost having a second student teaching experience?
Yeah, I think definitely my mindset has been always take the bull by the horns and make sure you get the most out of your experiences. And now reflecting on 2020, I am really grateful for that experience because if I was just observing in your classroom, I definitely wouldn't be as prepared as I was for student teaching the next following semester. So I think my mindset is just kind of getting the most out of what I do and making sure that we're able to get to all what we need to do in the semester. And you definitely allowing me to do that was such a huge help because it made me a lot better.
No, it was super fun to be able to work together. And it was really fun to be able to meet you in person and see you kind of facilitate a mastery classroom. And you had seen what the classroom looked like physically. So when we went to this situation of 2020, you really did have some beautiful background knowledge pieces that you were able to bring in. So for those people who may not have known your whole story, you were with me for the fall of 2019. And then the spring of 2020, I had a different student teacher, actually happened to be your friend, and you went to an elementary classroom. Is that true?
Yes, I was in an elementary 5th grade classroom.
Okay, so not too dramatic. You went from 6th grade to 5th grade, but that is different going from a middle school to an elementary school. At least in our area, there's some big differences there.
Oh yeah, it was definitely, I mean, you taught all the subjects. Definitely, we had less kids, obviously. So it was a big change.
So what does that look like? So in my classroom, you have about 150 kids. You teach about 5 courses. We have 2 different sections. But in an elementary setting, you're teaching all the subject areas. You have about somewhere between 20 and 30 students, I assume.
We had 26.
Okay. Are there any like switching classes at that point, or were you with the same kids all day long?
We actually had the same kids all day long.
Okay, cool. So you did that this spring, and that would have been an interesting time. I guess that still technically would have been some observation for you, but obviously you were continuously kind of jumping in, trying to be helpful. That would have been a really weird time because a lot of teachers didn't know what to do once March hit and a lot of things shut down with COVID. So how did that kind of go for you in terms of not necessarily being a lead teacher, but still interacting with students during this very weird spring semester of 2020?
Yeah, it actually looked a lot different. I actually wasn't as involved because, as you said, all the teachers were struggling, trying to see how they were going to navigate the situation as it was new for all. So I actually only joined one Zoom. I think that school only met once a day, and it was just a check-in. So I was only able to join that one time, and it only lasted for 20 minutes. So definitely my spring semester experience because of COVID wasn't nearly as compared to my past ones, and I didn't really do much. So definitely scary moving into student teaching.
Yeah, but I think that was typical because it's really hard to mentor. It's really hard to support another educator when you, as like the quote unquote lead teacher, have no idea what to do. Like I remember in the spring of 2020, there were so many questions. We had just started this daily drop-in series. To be honest, this was the best PD I was getting because I was talking and trying to have conversations with people, but things were changing so quickly that even my student teacher, which, Jess, who was wonderful, I didn't even know how to utilize her. So I think it was a really awkward space for a lot of educators just trying to do their best and support, these mentees that we had in our rooms.
Yeah, we were definitely in communication, and I told my co-op, I said, you don't need to worry about me. I was like, I'm sure I'll get experience. Don't worry about it. You need to work on your classroom because I'm sure it's so difficult to manage and navigate. So I know we were in communication, but that's just how it worked out.
No, it makes sense. And then I don't know when the official email was sent, but I got an email from your, I guess your supervisor at the university being like, so you taking Sam back this fall? And I was like, sign me up.
And I was telling my mom, I said, I'm moving to a middle school math classroom for student teaching, and I'm with Rae Hughart, and I know that I'm going to have a lot of work to do, but it's going to make me so much better.
Oh my goodness. I can only imagine. I do want to say good morning to all of our friends that are jumping in. Looks like Jeff is here. Christy's here. Alex. Oh my gosh. Kate, it's Chelsea. It's so good to see all of you that are commenting in the comments. Just so you know, Sam, Alex already posted his Apple track. This is where all the jobs are for his district. So you'll need to connect with him because that is always a good thing to stay connected. I've been telling you that from the beginning. Always connect with people. But we're just kind of getting into your student teaching experience fall of 2020, which is, I feel like when all these teachers tried to create a normal that doesn't really exist, and obviously support student teachers and mentees across the country who are just trying to learn how to be an educator in this very strange time. So I do want to give a shout out. If you're listening right now and you have a question about student teaching or being, in any sort of mentorship program right now, or, experience moving forward, I'd love for you to share your questions in the comments, as well as if you have a suggestion for a future educator. I mean, Sam, you're graduating in May and you'll be job hunting after that, or, you'll be job hunting very soon. Like, I don't know what kind of tips and tricks people might have for you, because job hunting in and of itself is hard, but obviously doing it during a world pandemic adds a little bit of a different flair. So you obviously aren't starting yet, but that will be coming within the next few months, don't you think?
Yeah, most definitely when I go back to school here in January. So that'll be something very soon.
That's crazy. We have to talk about the whole interview process. It's like its own world. But okay, so you enjoy your summer of 2020, or at least as much as we all could. And you have this First Day Institute where all the teachers from the district are coming together. We were meeting at Evans, and then we weren't able to meet because you weren't allowed in the building.
Yes, I was banned.
You were banned from Evans, even though we love you so much. They weren't allowing like anybody to come into the building that wasn't certified staff. So you did everything virtually from that first day of Institute to your last day student teaching, November 20th. Every single day you were on live teaching, working with students, completely remote. This might be a dumb question, but did you expect for that to be your student teaching experience?
No, honestly, what I expected, I knew I wasn't gonna be able to see the students. That's something that I did expect, but what I thought would happen is I thought I'd be able to see you at least throughout the experience, but maybe be in the classroom when the students weren't there and be able to be in the same classroom as you. But I definitely didn't expect to be all by myself in my room every single day.
Because you truly, I mean, as a college student, you're sitting in your apartment teaching full time. I mean, that's a surreal experience. My student teaching was nothing like that. I was in the classroom, and I actually was working in 2 different classrooms with 4 different subjects. And, there's team meeting and collaboration. You're running around the building making copies. Like a lot of those silly things you weren't able to do. And a lot of our time was spent trying to figure out technology, right? Essentially more than I had ever expected.
Yeah, we had talked about making copies. I think there's a lot of those silly things, like you said, it's just I haven't been able to do, and I wasn't allowed to since I was behind that screen.
Right.
Definitely looking at it on the outside, I was talking to my friends during the school year, and I was like, I can't sleep through the night. Like I wake up at 2, 3 every hour, and they're like, well, Sam, you spend every day in that room. And so when I'd go to bed, I honestly would be thinking about the grid. Like I would wake up in the middle of the night and think about the grid, and it's like, why can't I get the grid out of my head? But you think about the online experiences, and I'm sure it's hard for a lot of teachers and everything. If you're in your house, it's hard to compartmentalize and move that away.
Well, absolutely. And especially in a small space, like we all lived in, our apartments in college and after college, where you really don't have a lot of spaces to go. And a lot of people right now, even people who enjoy being home, are kind of like eager to leave their normal space just to like see different scenery. And you truly, I mean, you had the brunt of it. It was so interesting. But I will say, I don't think I ever saw that frustration in you. Like you were constantly like positive and working hard. I don't think you ever like logged onto a Google Meet and looked disheveled or like you hadn't slept.
Yeah, no, I think it's because you guys were the break that I had from my mind running rampant in the room. So being able to chat with the students and have that fun intro and everything was just a really blessing and the exciting part of my day.
Sam, I think Chelsea's comment here says, haha, that must be a part of the experience because I have had dreams about the grid too. Maybe this isn't a COVID thing. Maybe as you start the grid method and, using mastery learning in your classroom, it just like eats away at your brain. Maybe that's really what it is.
That really helps me and makes it reassuring because maybe it's just such a good thing that I couldn't get out of my head. That's probably a good way to look at it.
Interesting. This is like the worst ad for the grid method of all time.
That's funny.
Oh my goodness. I was reflecting on your student teaching experience because you're right. Like I have thought numerous times about if there's any point in the spring semester, next semester in 2021, when you can come into the building, like I have teacher goals for you still. Like I want to show you where the buttons are on the copier. And I want to like there's dumb things that we would have done had we been together physically in the building. But on the flip side, we were able to do such a intense deep dive into things that I don't know that we would have ever been able to focus on. At least I've had numerous student teachers. I have never worked so much and seen so much growth in any student teacher I have worked with as I did with you, dedicated to conferencing and providing feedback to students. Like I have never in my life seen a student teacher do that as well as you did. And to be honest, a lot of it has to do with your skill set And a little bit of it has to do with the fact that that was really a lot of what we could focus on and what we had control over. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think I was thinking about this last night, and I think it's because you had said in your previous having student teachers, you were able to leave the room. You said you were really just try to not be there as much as possible and let them go. And I think that's definitely something that we weren't able to do, because I think you turning off your camera, it's like you're definitely still sitting there. So you still being there, I think, allowed for us to reflect and really deeply analyze that and look at my teaching in a different way. So you being there every step of the way and not obviously being in it, but still being able to hear and analyze what I'm doing, allowed for us to further discuss and reflect on how I was performing.
Yeah, that kind of stinks, because that means you were constantly getting annoying feedback from me, whereas other student teachers, like, okay, so let's set the tone. So everybody listening, you know how it is to have a student teacher, but there's a moment, right or wrong, I believe this, there is a moment where you trust your student teacher enough that it is more beneficial for you to not be there. Not necessarily far away. You could be outside the door, around the corner, in the hallway. But Sam, like, when a student teacher gets to the point where they are fully capable of managing students, you then, as the co-op, kind of become a safety net that you want to take away. There are decisions that are easier to just throw back at the co-op, that in the moment, if the co-op's not there, you have to make those decisions. And I knew that you were always capable of making those decisions. So I tried to almost like remove myself as much as possible. And that's so much easier in a physical school building where you can control every element of the learning environment. When we're talking about a Google Meet, like, I can't leave my classroom's Google Meet. So the only thing I could do was turn off my camera, mute myself, and even turn down my volume to a certain extent. But you're right, I was always there. So there's just a different kind of ebb and flow of learning that happens, you know?
Yeah, and I think I'm smiling now because reflecting on my experience, I think I was definitely the queen of throwing that back to the co-op. Since I knew that you were there, I knew I couldn't get away with it, because you would say, okay, Miss Munroe, you go ahead, it's you. But I always knew that I was like, okay, Miss Hughart, what do you think about this situation? So definitely having your camera off and stuff like that. It's like I always knew that you were there and knew if I was drowning, you'd help.
Yeah. You got better at it as the semester went on, like knowing that you weren't supposed to go to me first. But on the flip side, Sam, like, because I really do want to give you so much credit, a lot of the situations you were in 2020 student teaching this fall were situations that a lot of people had never experienced. So your hesitation to make decisions a lot of the time were kind of huge decisions to make to make the call on, that normally a student teacher would never have to. You know, like, the decisions a student teacher makes is like, should this student be leaving the classroom to use the restroom right now? Like, is that the best use of their time? Versus tech issues of internet not working, or a parent sitting next to a student teacher. So as you're conferencing with the kid, mom's chiming in and asking about your, methodology in the classroom. Like, these are different experiences than anyone is used to.
Mm-hmm. The parents one were definitely, Rae, where are you? Please help. I'm scared.
You handled them so well, but yes, definitely. And then I feel like we did eventually, but it was hard to get in the groove and learn routines when essentially every few weeks there were things changing. Every few days there were things changing. So a lot of the mentorship I feel like a normal teacher would be giving a student teacher in normal circumstances is teaching them the routines and then letting them facilitate them. But when routines change so quickly, like, it's kind of hard to like hand over the reins as quickly as you'd want to.
Yeah, I think why I was observing the last week, and I really was excited to do that because I was interested to see how other teachers were running their classroom. Because I think in the way that you were running your classroom with the grid and the virtual classroom portal, it allowed for consistency and routine for the students extremely, and for me as well. Sure. So as much as the schedules were changing and times were changing, and you had to take over because we were going into hybrid, I think the way the design of the classroom allowed for me to have a good and solid understanding of what I was doing, and allowed me to have some confidence in navigating that.
Wow. Let's get into that a little bit. So your student teaching experience while in your room for the entire semester, not meeting students, really had some consistent elements that you were doing right at the beginning from August, truly all the way through. I think your last day, like officially leading, was like November 16th. Like you went the entire way. November 20th was technically your last day, but like you were teaching the whole time. So what did your typical schedule look like as you were kind of mapping out your interactions with students? Like, how did that look?
Are you talking about like plans for the day? And
Sure, yeah. Give me like the breakdown. What were you doing with students like hour by hour?
So when I was thinking about mini lessons for planning, I would think about how I can build relationships with the students. So, I mean, if they're preparing for a test or anything like that, or they're struggling with a certain skill, I'd kind of focus on that skill set. But other than that, I really was just trying to find ways to build relationships with them and get to know them a little bit better since we are through a screen. Yeah. So I think every hour I kind of stuck with going through a mini lesson with them. Maybe it be would you rather, or this or that, or 2 truths and a lie, something like that. And then obviously I know you and I had reflected, and myself reflecting on what went well, what didn't go wrong, or what went wrong, and all that stuff. And so kind of just moving and adjusting that lesson as we went on throughout the day, but still getting to know the students or working on problems as much as we could.
So then you'd have this mini lesson time, which was always like 10-ish minutes, like 6 to 10 minutes, depending on what you were doing. And all the times we were getting these like Google updates. So we started out feeling like we had to ad lib the whole thing ourselves. Then we dabbled with polls and raising your hand. And like Google just kept updating as the semester went, which was really cool to watch you see new features. And then the following class hour or the following day, you're like, let's try this. And so that was really cool to watch because we were all living that experience. But to see a future educator, a college student choosing to take those risks was pushing me to be better, to be completely honest. And then after that 6 to 10 minute mini lesson, what was the rest of that time? How did you choose to work with students?
So depending on if we're not, we'd pull groups. So sometimes we'd pull groups of students that maybe we need to set a plan for the day. So kind of focusing on where they're at in the tracking page and what they're going to get done in that day. If we didn't pull groups, it would be conferences. So if students needed a conference on any part of the grid, they would stay. And then we would conference with them. And then after that, I think that would be the end of class.
Yeah.
So conferences.
Yeah, they would end with like that 5-minute reflection, but you were talking with students the whole time. And that's what I think was the hardest part, or that's what I would have assumed was the hardest part. Your development in this area, I don't know how to express it effectively on camera, guys. You would literally need to come into Sam's class and see it. But just to clarify, you were pulling groups based on the tracking page, which means you were using live data to check in with students. You were conferencing with students, which means that at any point in time, one of your 30 students in every single class that changed every single hour needed something, and you were immediately responding and providing feedback for that. And then in addition to all that, you were managing that, and you started using timers really quickly because you had students for, 35 minutes or 40 minutes that you were conferencing with, but some of those students needed 2 or 3 or 4 different things from you. And so you using those timers was fascinating to watch because a teacher's skill to gauge how much time something is going to take is hard enough. Then to communicate that to a student, have the student set a timer, follow those directions, and come back on the Google Meet. Like, I could talk about that for the next hour. That is impossible to do. And you started doing that from the moment you started teaching because that was the only way you could effectively support students' time in like a Google, Meet virtual setting.
Yeah, I think the conferences definitely, it was the most difficult and challenging thing to get through. I think we had discussed, I think I let out a couple tears out of frustration just because it was so difficult at first. I mean, conferencing, I don't think I conferenced in your classroom the first time that I was in it in the fall of 2019.
Probably not, no.
And even though that looked different virtually than it did online or than it did in person, so definitely trying to navigate the students that needed a conference on A or B, or they needed a conference on the test. And those conferences, all look different. And there's definitely different levels of priority. So like I needed to get those students that had A first. So trying to figure out how to manage that situation and who goes first and what the conference looks like. It was very difficult, but I think we found I was setting 5-minute timers at first. That clearly wasn't enough time. So we had to go to 10-minute timers. And then I had my sheet ready for the conference questions. So I had a general idea of what I was asking them.
Yeah.
And just making sure that I had the tracking page open on my computer so I was able to see both. And then we were able to use, I think I was using Page Marker on a Google Doc. So
yes.
I was typing, or I was using my finger on the trackpad, which, fun fact, gave me carpal tunnel in my wrist. But then luckily I had an iPad at home. And so I got the iPad shipped to my house, and I was using, I don't have an Apple Pencil, or a stylus. I just used my finger. And that was a lot better because I was able to have all the students up on my screen.
Yeah.
And I could see the tracking page too. And then I was able to do the conferences on my iPad. So that was a really good adjustment.
Oh my God, I forgot about the trackpad. That's so awesome. That was the thing, Sam. You were adapting so quickly. Like, you'd hear about a Google add-on, you'd add it, you'd start incorporating it, and then it'd be like, whoa, how's that working for you? You're like, it's kind of a mess on this end, but I don't think it looks like a mess on your end, which is good.
Yeah, now that I think about it, that was absolutely terrible. Like, I don't know how you let me continue to do it on the trackpad. That's another thing.
You were so good. Like, guys, here's the deal. If you aren't sure what we're talking about, because I'm just laughing and not being a good facilitator. But so Sam wanted to do problems with the students, but she was in her apartment. So the only way that you could show a problem was either to have a whiteboard or a white sheet of paper and hold it up. Or what you started doing was sharing your screen and writing on your screen. But the only way you could write on your screen was moving the trackpad by drawing, because you had this add-on that allowed you to draw on the screen. So it worked wonderfully for the kids, but I just can see you now over there in your apartment being A2+. That's not easy.
No, and every time I double clicked on the trackpad, the dictionary would come up. And so it would take me back to the home screen, and the dictionary would come, and as I had to exit out of the dictionary, it was terrible.
And changing colors was hard, but you guys know as a teacher, when you're doing things, it helps to kind of color code and show your steps. Holy moly.
That was a lot.
It was a lot. So with all that being said, I want to go back to logistics, even though I'm going to be thinking about that trackpad, and that's going to make me laugh all day long. So you're working with students and they need all different things. And so you're prioritizing based on this live data, who needs what. And this live data is provided by the students. So students are advocating for their needs and you're immediately responding to them. And as students were conferencing on things, you needed to know what questions you had to ask to collect the data you needed as the teacher to feel good having them move forward. And I want to know, that couldn't have been easy starting out, but did you see how your development and not only getting to know the students, but getting more familiar with the content and getting more familiar with questioning helped you kind of change your method in conferencing from the beginning of September kind of to the end of November, conferencing every single day with kids?
Yes. Side note, these are the questions that I was like, oh, should I ask Rae what she's going to ask me before the daily drop-in? No, I'll be all right. But this is the question that I was a little bit nervous for.
Why? What about this is hard? You literally adapted from I have to ask this because if a student was taking a quiz, they would probably have these types of questions, to all the way to November. I would literally watch you conference with students. A student would come in and in your head, you'd be like, what do I actually need from them? What have I collected in the past? Where do I know they're going? What questions have I asked them already before they even entered? And then you'd ask them one question, you'd have the data you needed, and then they'd leave. And I'd be like,
no, yeah, it did change a lot. I think at first my mindset was I have to follow the rules. Rae's watching, everything's got to be done the exact way that it usually is, or the way that it should be done, by say, I don't know. And so from the beginning, I think I was just kind of checking off the boxes. Okay, I went through multiplication, subtraction, and division. They're good to go. I know they know it. That's it. But then I think as the semester went on, I was more so focused on, okay, they're confident, their voice, they're projecting, they're confident in what they're saying. They know the skill. I don't need to go through multiplication, addition, and subtraction, and division. They know what they're doing. They're good to go.
Well, and that's not easy to do because you're now talking about taking on students' cues, which, by the way, most of the time their cameras weren't on. So you're just doing that purely by the tone and inflection in their voice. And you need to know your content to say, here are the 4 things I need to quote unquote check on. But there's 2 key common mistakes. So I'm going to choose to only ask about those 2 common mistakes versus asking 5 or 6 questions. You kind of like had that process of needing to narrow all that down.
Yeah, definitely. And then I think focusing on the quizzes and the tests, I think that's definitely something that I struggled with, and focusing on, I can't help them, especially for the test conferences. So I would, just out of the generosity and big heart that I have, I would say, oh, I want to help you. So I'm trying to get this line out of my face. And so I would want to give them the answer and kind of help them through the problem, but knowing that it is a test conference, that's something that I know you and I reflected on, and myself included. Right. It's something that they have to get through that because they're showing me their knowledge. And so that was something where I couldn't speak on.
Well, but you kind of had to know, and again, these are all the moving pieces that you had to decide in an instant. And let me just preface, this was the most fascinating thing for me throughout the semester. Like, you were like my little guinea pig, Sam, where every time you spoke, I'm like, wow, I know exactly what mental process she just went through. And it was truly like incredible to watch. But you really had to know your goal for every single conference, because not only was every conference different in terms of questions that you needed to ask and topics that you were covering, but the type of conference you were doing in terms of, is this formative? Am I trying to provide the student like feedback so they can grow? Or is the mindset that this is a little more summative, where I'm not necessarily trying to ask them questions to teach them, but truly ask them questions to pinpoint where their gaps are so I can give them some sort of grade? Because it didn't mean that by assigning a grade, you wouldn't be giving them feedback. We don't need to necessarily get into some deep discussion about how everything's formative. I know we agree with that, but there were points where we just needed to get an understanding of where they were rather than direct them to the right answer. And that's hard to decide. That's hard to manage. That's hard to track. And you did it all semester long.
Yeah, I think it was definitely because grading, that's something that I didn't really, it wasn't processing in my brain. I was like, okay, it's okay if they don't get a 3.
Right.
And I was just, I want you to get to the right answer because I want to give you a 3 or I want to give you a 4, but it's like not every student gets a 3. And I think that's something that my mind needed to comprehend, because that was my mindset when going through those test conferences and trying to get them to get to the right answer.
Well, and again, it's not that not every student can get a 3, but it's really just trying to identify, are there gaps that exist? But if I lead them to the right answer, can I rationalize that maybe those gaps don't exist? Or is it okay that gaps exist because they've worked their tush off all semester, and them getting a 2 doesn't mean they didn't make exceptional growth throughout the unit? I mean, if they came in knowing nothing and then only had minimal gaps, then you can still make that feel like a huge accomplishment that it is. It just doesn't mean that they necessarily are like completely perfect in that content area. Not all of us are perfect in all of our content spaces. So, kind of is that ebb and flow.
Most definitely.
Alex commented here, okay, I'm super impressed here. Like, Rae is supposed to tell Sam how wonderful she is, but I've never met you before, and I'm trying to figure out how to convince you to join the Pretzel family, which is, by the way, his mascot, as soon as you graduate, for reals. We have elementary positions too. So he is all about trying to figure out, elementary versus a middle school math position. You have a lot of options, Sam.
I know. And I think a mascot like a pretzel sounds kind of fun.
Oh, they're awesome. That is totally true. So you've gone, okay, so you student taught all fall. You truly just had conversations with students all day, every day. You had your tracking stuff that you had on your end. Like, I've been showing this a bunch on our daily drop-ins. Like, I have like a paper with all the students' names that I'm like, check, I talked to you, or, all these different checkpoints. You're also dealing with, all the things that we all dealt with in the fall that are watching, where, parents popped in and thought they could have a parent-teacher conference in the middle of class. You had numerous students that like logged off and then you couldn't, get in contact with after. I mean, these are all just normal 2020 fall adjustments that we made. But then in addition to all that, you planned an entire unit on your own. You lesson plan daily for mini lessons and, communicating with students on expectations. If you had to pinpoint the hardest part and the easiest part, what would that have been? Like, you just went through a fall of terror and you came out on top being incredible. What was the easiest thing and what was the hardest thing about that experience?
Hardest, as you can tell right now, is probably figuring out the lighting.
Stop.
In my room at school as well, I just, you have the ring light. It makes you look so beautiful.
Oh, you're so good.
But, it's just hard to look good online. Anywho.
Sam, you look gorgeous. If anybody's watching right now, live or watching this after the fact, you can see that like the sun is in Sam's eyes. So Sam, I think you're doing great. But if you're listening to this on Teach Better Talk podcast after the fact, go find the video because Sam's beautiful to look at. So I had to look at her every single day, all day long. So it's great.
I think so I'll go with the hardest. Hardest thing, like 2020 wise, would be still knowing that you're with me. So I wasn't scared, but it's like you have your system, and I was trying to navigate that as well. But knowing that you're there as well, I definitely was a little bit nervous, just to know that we're going to reflect on it, and not nervous in the sense that you're going to scream at me and be all mean co-op, because you never were. But it definitely does kind of hinder my decision making and kind of navigating that process. So just knowing that I'm always being watched kind of made me a little bit scared, just navigating all of it.
Well, and I think every teacher can relate to that, because if we all taught where we had our principal listening to every word and decision we made all day long, like I have a great relationship with my leadership, but I still get nervous when Mr. McGraw is like, okay, Rae, I'm coming in to observe you and give you feedback. It's like, I hope I do this right. And you did that every single day, all day long. I mean, it is nerve-wracking no matter how good our relationship is, because you have a passion to want to do well. And getting feedback all day, every day is exhausting. So
yeah,
for you.
Yeah, it was really difficult, but also at the same time, I am very thankful for it, because for the amount of reflection that we did and the amount of growth that I was able to take definitely wouldn't have happened if you weren't by my side the whole time. So even though it was difficult to navigate and it was a little bit challenging at some points, it was very great.
I do want you to know there was many times where I moved my laptop over here and I had my camera off and I was on mute and my volume was at like a 1. I just want you to know that. Like, I barely paid attention to you this semester. Like, you're lucky you got feedback, because I was kind of like, you were like, how'd that go? And I like turned my volume up and I'm like, oh yeah, it was great. Keep it up. Good. Best lesson you've done.
Well, thank you. But I think academic wise, meaning like teaching, I think the hardest part was definitely planning the next steps for the students that needed it. Yeah. So trying to like figure if they struggled on their conference, I struggled a lot with, and how to plan their next steps and what we're going to do to help them. So planning those supports for them, and figuring out what they needed and how we're going to move on so that they can be successful for the next teacher conference. Right. That's definitely something that we had talked about.
And can I just preface, Sam, that is something every teacher is constantly working on. I myself am having that same reflection, needing to make sure I do that for the kiddos that I'm going to see here in 45 minutes. So that's not necessarily a new teacher, student teacher struggle. That's something that every educator is working on, is how can I collect enough data from my students to then ensure that tomorrow's lesson is as relevant and personalized as humanly possible. That is not easy. And I don't know that anybody will ever or could ever master that. That is so challenging.
Yeah, it is very difficult.
What was the easiest part?
The easiest part was communicating with my co-op.
No.
I'm honestly trying to think. A lot of it, I mean, nothing was really easy. I think the virtual classroom portal, it was very simple, and it allowed, I mean, it was easy, it was routine. And so all I would do is just edit it, put the classroom goal in there, put a little mini lesson, drag it up to the top. It was just a very easy and simple tool to use every single day.
Okay, 2 things, Sam. Chelsea's listening, or she has been because she's been commenting. Did you know that you don't have to drag the slide up to the top and there's a button?
I did not know that.
I did not know that either. Somebody told me on Instagram last week because I posted that I was pulling the slide to the top and they were like, there's a button for that. And I'm like, man, we went all semester dragging the slide to the top.
Well, that's upsetting, but honestly, it is kind of rewarding when you finish it, you delete the white box that covers it, and you drag it all the way to the top.
It's true. It was routine. But so I like that your connection to easy is setting up routine. I think that is such an incredible reflection, because while I've been saying that, like really hearing someone else say that, I think hits differently, because you're right. I don't think there's any part of teaching that's easy. Like, it was easy that we had a relationship. Like, yes, I love working with you. I think you're like the best educator I know. You have so much drive and grit, and it was inspiring to work with you all semester. So that was easy. But truly, when you talk about like things in the classroom that are quote unquote easy, it was really the fact that you set up routines that gave you permission to put your focus on other things, if that makes sense. It was easy because you had a safety net of strong routines. And I think that if every educator kind of took that and for what it's worth and tried their best to put that in place, then we would be able to put more focus, more emphasis on the hard stuff, because the routines would help us with the things that can, in any capacity, be kind of easy.
Yeah, and definitely in a virtual setting, like I'm probably biased, but the way that you were running a classroom with those routines of the virtual classroom portal, of the tracking page, of the grid, it's like everything that you did to create that routine and that consistency, I can't imagine a different classroom working in a virtual setting, because we made it so consistent you made it so consistent for the students, and doing that every day.
You made it consistent. I barely taught this semester. I want our entire network to know they watch me on camera like every day. Rae did not teach. Sam taught all semester. Legit. It was insane.
Yeah. But I mean, transitioning to hybrid and transitioning back from hybrid, it's like we knew what we were going to do because of the consistency and routine that we put in.
Yeah. Danielle has some thoughts for you here. She says that she's loving this daily drop-in, which does not surprise me at all. And she says, you look great. And then she says 15 years into teaching, she's still dreaming about content. So I hate to tell you, Sam, but apparently you're just never going to sleep again, because we all have this. And then she also says that having a network is critical. And I know you have been working to build your network. You have so many connections, not only at your university, but obviously with the teachers that you've worked with. And the more you can kind of surround yourself with really good, supportive people, the more successful you're going to be. So I totally agree with the network thing.
Yeah, thank you for the tips. And I think Rae, I like paid you to be on the Teach Better podcast, or drop-in, so that, I could try and build those connections.
That's true. I'm just trying to get your name out there. I talk about you all the time. And originally I was like, I shouldn't embarrass Sam. And I'm like, no, my mission for the fall is to embarrass Samantha Munroe as much as humanly possible.
As you should.
That's true. So, okay. I know that we're like almost at the hour mark. So sorry everybody that we've been blabbing, but I love talking to you. So this is like so easy for me. But you're in an interesting spot now. You student taught the entire fall semester virtually. There's been incredible aha moments. You clearly are not failing your student teaching experience, even though I tried. I tried to have your Wesleyan professor fail you so I could keep you in the spring, but they said no because they're so mean over there at Wesleyan University. I don't know, they like believe in you or something. And now you have a little bit of a break, but you still have another semester, which Wesleyan does that differently. You don't student teach your last semester, you student teach your first semester of senior year. What does the next semester for you look like, outside of hopefully us like getting coffee and me teaching you about the copier at some point in your life?
Yeah, hopefully I'll be in Evans at some point. Next semester, I think I'm finishing up some gen ed, so just a lab. And then we have a reading internship. So I'm elementary education reading endorsement. That's just, so I have other endorsements for middle school, but just for the elementary education course, they have a reading endorsement. And for that, we have a reading internship. So I actually will be in the classroom, but via Google Meet, and working with groups of students, one-on-one with students, but just focusing on reading. So definitely won't be teaching at all, or teaching in front of the class per se, but still working with students in the classroom.
Sure. And then do you guys have a research project or anything that you're doing for the spring?
Oh, yes, I did forget about my research.
He's like completely ignoring what the entire semester is actually for.
Yes, so I actually did research throughout my student teaching experience. I focused on motivation for students via an online platform, so online learning, e-learning. And so I gathered all that data, all that information, all that research from the fall semester, and then I'll be putting it all together for spring semester, and then I'll have my presentation at some point in the spring.
Big deal. Big deal. So you are going to start job hunting, and I'm guessing that will start to happen. Like, you guys know, as you're watching here, like teachers, like job posting can happen anywhere from like February to July or August. Like, there's always different strategies, different school buildings are able to release, and different positions open. I remember the interview process in the spring of your senior year, because you're kind of balancing working, but then also wanting to be available and apply to school districts and interview and make all those decisions. So I wish you a ton of luck. I just want you to know that if they call me for a reference, I'm going to tell them you don't know how to use a copier. I just want to make sure you're aware of that. So that way, when they're like asking you the interview questions, I mean, like, so we talked to your reference and she's really concerned about your button pushing on the copier. Like, maybe I'll have to go over that with you. I don't know.
I think that's definitely fair to say, honestly. I've never seen a copier before. Well, I did see it once, but I've never pushed any buttons on it. So I think that's definitely fair of you to say.
Yeah, because I'm gonna tell them, I'll be like, oh my gosh, with students building relationships, 10 out of 10. With conferencing with students to like collect information from students, 15 out of 10. Copy machine skills, I don't know, pretty low on that scale.
Yeah, I'd give myself a 0.
It's totally good. I love it. Well, Sam, I wish you absolutely nothing but the best. I cannot wait until we're able to see each other again in person. I definitely owe you a huge coffee and a wonderful, wonderful gift after your killer student teaching experience. I did tell you this before we went live, but I have like a very funny gift for you that I'm not going to pull out on camera, but that will be coming your way in a little bit. That if any of you listening right now, if you need student teacher ideas, I believe in this gift for a student teacher to my core. So just wait for that, Sam. I'm so stoked for you. But regardless of where you end up, I'm so excited for your career, because there's no one I know more prepared to help students than you. And I don't mean that to sound like flippant or like I'm, lying. Like, truly, Sam, I don't know any student teacher that is more prepared to put students first in their classroom. And I'm just so excited to see what you do with your career, because I was so excited. So awesome.
Thank you so much. And thanks for having me. I'm glad to be the first and hopefully last youngest participant ever on the Teach Better Daily Drop-In series. Let's go that way. And
I'll get your trophy sent over as well. That'll be good.
Yes, please include that into my little letter of recommendation and my
letter of rec. I feel like people would be able to write you a little bit of a letter of rec, even just based off of this daily drop-in. So anybody listening, if you want to craft up a letter of rec that Sam can use for her next employer, let us know. I can get you her email. For everybody else listening, thank you for joining our daily drop-in. We always love being available to not only answer questions, but talk shop and just make sure that you're setting the right tone for your day. Sam and I are going to hang out here for a second, but we will see everyone else later. And don't forget to join us tomorrow morning at 8:30 a.m. Eastern time for the Daily Drop-In, where we will have a special guest from Move This World focusing on SEL support tomorrow morning. So we'll see you guys later. Bye, guys.